Welcome back to our journey to find out what is the maximum limit of Fiscit coupon points that you can earn per minute in Satisfactory. First off, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who lightly gestured towards that subscribe button and smack that bell. It means a lot, and thank you too to all the friendly comments. Keep them coming, and we will keep the videos rolling. All right, so you ever play a factory game with your two friends and you tell them, all right, folks, we're not going to use any spaghetti in this build. And what they hear is actually use all the spaghetti, so much so that you have to go to the grocery store with your mom to get new spaghetti. But when you find the spaghetti, your mom tells you that you have spaghetti at home. And so then when you get home, you actually can't open the door because your house is crammed full of all the spaghetti because you forgot that your two friends work at a spaghetti factory. Well, that's not true. But it does seem to be the prevailing notion because we tossed our OCD into the wind and built this monstrosity. I swear I should get t-shirts that say, friends don't let friends spaghetti, because it seems like we need it. But anywho, when we last left our adventures, we faced a major bottleneck trying to squeeze past phase 2. Well, suffice it to say, we blew through that benchmark with ease. So let's detail the build since then. So starting off with what you're curious with most, what is actually our Fiscit coupon point rate? Currently, we stand at 14,516 coupon points per a minute. Now, most of that sweet coupon juice is actually coming from a Silicon Valley that we had in the north. There's a few other sources as well contributing to that fact. Now, I've seen some comments about the coupon point rate, and I know that this is something that people are really interested in, so we will make sure to keep you all up to date while this goes on. Now, just keep in mind, though, that this number will go up and down as our needs need to be met first. So while some updates, it might seem to stagnate or even drop, don't worry, this is still obviously our goal. So moving on to power, we actually had a few incidents where I tripped a fuse and shut down the factory late at night. I feel like calling IT support at midnight and asking Lex to add more power to the factory, but Lex did a great job of adding more power to our factory, with a total of 24 coal generators added to the power lake, and a new addition of 12 fuel generators to the new Eastern Power Lake that provides us approximately 4,800 megawatts of power production. So turning our attention back to the main base, one of the early upgrades I did was I made a huge advancement onto our modular frame factory. This upgrade was brought to you by the number 2, as in Mark II miners giving me so much iron I didn't actually know what to do with it. So with 9 assemblers working diligently, this new factory had a major upgrade from 4 modular frames a minute to approximately 18 modular frames a minute. This upgrade was needed for a few reasons, because in order for us to blast past our versatile framework needs, we needed a lot more modular frames. With this new abundance of modular frames, we actually built a temporary worksite for the versatile frameworks. But we also shuttled some of these frames into a temporary manufacturer to give us heavy modular frames for various needs such as fuel generators and trains. Speaking of trains, we actually now had the power of locomotion. And Lex constructed our first train line that ran from our main base to our first refinery construction out in the western beaches. This refinery is a fairly unique one in that it utilizes 4 oil patches which provide the refinery with 720 meters cubed of crude oil per a minute. At first, I had the idea of making a horizontal setup with this refinery, but realizing that the pipes could get in the way and the space requirements might be high, I decided to go with a more vertical build where I pump 480 meters cubed of the crude oil up into the first refining section. This required only 2 pipe sections to accomplish. This refining section was used strictly for plastic refining. And then I shot the heavy oil residue and the plastic back down, where the plastic got shipped off to the train and used for packaged fuel, and the heavy oil actually got mixed with a secondary refining section that used about 240 meters cubed of crude oil to produce rubber. And this rubber got shipped off to the train, and the heavy oil was exclusively used for packaged fuel. But before we talk further about where that plastic and rubber went, I want to back up and talk about some of the upgrades that we had to do to our main factory to prepare for these new resources. The first upgrade that was done was the definitely not Lex's rotor factory. So come on with me as we do a dive in on this factory. Firstly, the iron ore gets conveyed in when it gets popped right into smelters, which smelt the iron ingots into the next stage, which is iron rods. Between each of these layers, there's actually a small door into the underbelly of the conveyor network that's housing the logistics behind each stage of the process. These rods then are funneled into more constructors for screw production, and they're also funneled into the assemblers where the final result is rotors, where they're constructed. With a total of 5 assemblers crafting rotors, this factory is able to produce about 20 rotors per minute. Another major upgrade that was done was Dez's copper factory. Realizing that our needs for copper were getting versatile and increasing in size and nature, Dez constructed a factory that pulls copper ingots from other outside sources, as well as smelts some of the copper within inside the factory. From there, the copper ingots are funneled upstairs to a second level, where a massive copper wiring factory is hard at work popping out that sweet, sweet wire. From there, the wire is actually shipped off to multiple points in the factory, some to produce cables and other to combine with steel pipes to produce satyrs. From there, the satyrs and cable are combined to produce automated wiring for the adaptive control units. The final upgrade that was done to push us past phase 3 was I worked on a new screw factory where our smart plate factory used to be. With the help of the new Mark II miners, I was able to pop out about 960 screws a minute, because where they were going, I knew that we would need a ton of screws. That's right, folks, the moment you've all been waiting for, the spaghetti. See, this monstrosity really was us just trying to brute force past phase 3 so that we could get to bigger and better things. Now, why it seems like all of a sudden we lost all sense of sanity was because our philosophy behind the game changed a little bit. At first, you can tell that we are building nice looking factories and all that jazz. But then we realized that one huge factor that would play into the success of our endeavor and our goal was not so much quantity, but that the distance played a factor as well. And as much as we'd like to create some nice looking factories for you all to admire, we actually realized that we had some short-term goals to blast through, and this meant that we needed more short-term solutions. So we obviously turned to the dark side and embraced our spaghetti. Our approach to this really was ship it and send it. Bring it all here and ship it without too much concern for aesthetics. We had a goal to reach, and by Fiscit, we were going to achieve that goal. So to start, I worked on a small module where we would start to get circuit boards. And this was actually the first time that I experimented with belt highways that were able to manage multiple connections. This design I actually got from the Satisfactory Blueprint website. And I was able to iterate on this concept to build much more larger 4-lane belt highways, which we plugged into the manufacturer. With 5 manufacturers working on building computers, we were able to build about 15 computers per minute that we used on a variety of projects that we were working towards, including obviously blasting past our adaptive unit control goal. With the adaptive control units out of the way, the only last objective that we had to get to was the 500 modular engines. So Dez got to work on building a temporary smart plate factory, which we could use to produce the modular engines we required. With rubber coming in from the train, I actually also built a small factory for the production of engines, and then we fed that into the manufacturer to produce those modular engines. However, at 1 modular engine per a minute, I knew it was going to be slow going, and that's where I'd probably like to end off today's video. So what's the next update going to entail? Well, we were inches away getting past phase 3, so our next outlook is probably going to be working on exploiting all the resources across the entire map and making sure that we can ship them to centralized spots so that we can crank out the maximum number of Fiscit points that we can. So I'd say that we're right on the edge of getting to the megabase stage of our megabase. So honestly, who knows what the next update will entail? But if it's anything like the rate in which we are going, it's probably going to be quite the update. So that's about it for this update. See you all next time, and thanks for tuning in and subscribing.